Good evening. As promised, I am going to do a quick tutorial. Here is my McSquared Customs database. I have worked on this for quite a while, refining, rebuilding. I can't tell you how many times I've restarted it, rebuilt it from scratch. I don't really mind if you know the username and password, it's generic. I've password protected this for the inevitable when I split the database from front end and back end. Here's the landing page that you will land on once you log in. I obviously logged in with an administrator account. I also have a sales account for an employee who would just be entering um, invoice data. And then I have an accounting account that has almost the same level of administrative privileges. However, they can run specific financial reports, etc. A lot of this that's on the screen right now, I've designed this as to be more of an ERP. So you can look up customer information. You can get a heads up display of, kind of what you have open right now as far as open quotes, how many, what the value of those quotes are, unpaid invoices, et cetera, et cetera. These values that are shown here are by no means representative of McSquared business. This is all fictional data. I have a separate database that I'm using to track all of my sales currently, simply because this is still a work in progress, and I think I'm at the point where I'm ready for some user acceptance testing. So without further ado, we'll just look at some of the features on this initial screen. Over here on the right, you can select a customer right here from this drop down, and it will show any invoices or quotes tied to that specific customer. Right now, I only have two. Myself and my test subject, my wife, Lynn. She's been great. She helps me and enters a lot of the things that, I'll sit up and restless nights and work on this. And she's like, I just don't understand, and da 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 da. So anyways, you can look these up. Now, the cool thing, what I've done here is if you want to check an invoice, right? So it's one thing to be able to see it here. There really wasn't enough space to be able to, show all of this in one screen. However, what this does for you is it allows you to go in here and double click on that invoice, and here's the invoice. So we're not going to go too in depth into this now because I don't want to stray too far away from this page yet. So obviously this is branded for McSquared. That's my woodworking crafting business. This can be branded to any business. I've designed this to support CNC woodworking, laser engraving, and 3D printing, simply because those are the three things that I do. It can probably scale to more than that. Um, but you can customize this display, actually the entire database, simply by rerunning the setup wizard. Uh, and label progress referred to you. Oh, well, there's a fix. See what I mean? That's not a big error because it didn't stop the program from working. So when you go in here to rerun the wizard, it'll pop you up into this window. This is where you put in your business information, all that stuff. Then you can go next. I'm gonna have to fix this label progress. Basically, it's just that's kicking an error because there's a label that's named incorrectly somewhere. That I can go and fix pretty quick. I can probably fix it in about 10 seconds. But I'm not going to deal with it right now. So here's where you brand your business, right? So you have your logo path, the background image, and your tagline. Okay, so we'll go back to these in a second, but you can upload all of these, and then when you click apply to all header forms, it'll apply it across all of the forms that are located over here, which it won't give me access to right now because it expects me to finish this setup before I do anything else. Okay. Then you can set up your color scheme here. Secondary colors are listed here. I'm gonna go through and make these assigned to specific things, and then give an example or give a good description of that out here to the right. Um, Tax configuration. So this is where you'll set your base sales tax. This will store that data in table tax rates over here. And then your table shop info will pull that information. So all of this information right here about your shop will be stored in table shop info, but it'll also write the tax information in the table tax rates. And then when your shop info is loaded, it looks to this table to determine what that tax rate is. So if, let's say, your tax base goes up from one tax year to the next, right? You don't have to go in and rerun this whole thing. You can just go into this table tax rates, readjust your taxes, and it will update in the shop info. Okay. Business settings. This is default markup percentages, and this sets your default currency. I have not tested this yet, but I will build in. So right now it's set up for US dollar only. However, comma, I can easily write a Visual Basic script that will convert the US dollar to whatever the current exchange rate is. That's going to require potentially another form that you as the user would have to interact with on your initial setup. Maybe here you say, all right, currency is the euro, right? We'll put euro there. When you put euro, it maybe will pop up another box and say, what's the current exchange rate? XYZ, right? And it'll put that in there so that all of the formulas that I've already built on the back end will still function and give you accurate totals and tallies. Okay. So then on the last page, review and complete, and then it's done, right? So I'm just going to cancel out of this and come on, buddy. No, it's not going to let me. Next. Huh. Okay. We'll just close it out there. Okay. So, and it wouldn't let me. So the reason it wouldn't let me do that is I have hard coded some stops in there that prevent the user from missing data on initial setup. So because I didn't go in and make any changes, the software was kind of confused, I guess. It didn't know what it wanted to do, and it's a silent error. So if you actually do a debug on the VB script, it will actually show what it's doing. It's going to tell you, hey, you need to put in X data, right? So I may just do I may put a I may put a little bit of code in there for error exiting out of there without an error. When you don't want to make a change, maybe just give you a pop-up warning, be like, are you sure you want to, exit without saving? You haven't completed setup, something to that effect, right? So in that setup screen when it was asking for logos and all of that stuff, right? So this is my McSquared logo. This is my alternate logo. This is more of my my little brand alt, if you will. I came up with this just because I thought it looked cool and I thought it really represented McSquared. Obviously, when we were formed, this was our original logo. Shout out to one of my peers that I served with in the Army who designed this for me. I had a different vision. I was just using like a speed square and, trying to do something. I don't know, it was a little, kooky. And he was like, dude, just make it simple. And he presented this to me and I was like, oh man, this works. This is spot on. So tagline logo, what it asks for in there, that's right here. Your address, phone number, email, or website, which some of these are really unnecessary, but the reason that I included them in the header is to include them on the invoices and the quotes. Because if I just go ahead and brand the entire database this way, then when you go in here to a quote or whatever and you click, you know, print this quote, it'll print it to a PDF. You can email it to the, your potential customer, and it's already branded with all of your imagery, all of your addresses and all that stuff. There's probably a way to do that without setting it up this way. I just, it was a forethought. I had thought about it before I even designed the forms, and this is what I came up with, right? So down here in the lower right, monthly invoice revenue. So this will show you your last month to the current month and show you your trend line. Okay. And then the monthly quote count versus invoice count. This is your conversion rate. Very important when you're looking at a marketing strategy, XYZ, right? So you want to know what your conversion rate is. So if somebody contacts you, asks for a quote, and they don't convert, then you need to kind of figure out why. And this will let you know where you need to look, or if you need, not where you need to look, if you need to look and investigate why you're not converting. Okay. So go into customer screen. You can go in here, you add customers here. It's pretty straightforward. Um, I've got these buttons disabled because it's on the first record. And then when you go to the last record, these buttons disable simply to prevent a user from clicking the next button again. Access inherently or natively wants to create a new record if you go past the current record. So I've disabled that so that you can't accidentally create a blank record. Okay. So if there's changes to be made for this customer, you'll make those changes and you'll click this update button. If you want to add a new customer, you just click add new customer. Now it resets all of these fields. You will put in the information and then you will click update. And it's as simple as that. If you want to delete a customer, as you see, I've got it marked as an orange. And then if you click on it, it'll give you this warning box and it'll tell you that archiving is safer if you have invoices and quotes tied to them. Typically, when you're dealing with a business and you have records, financial records tied to a customer, you want to keep that customer for a certain amount of time for tax purposes, right? In case you were to get audited. So we're going to click no. So what it was saying there with that pop-up is, do you want to just archive the customer instead? So right here, you can click archive the customer. So we'll go back to the first record and we're going to archive me. Okay. Archive this customer. Tells you what it does. Sets is active to false. This preserves a history for invoices and quotes. Sure, let's do that. So now the only thing I see here is Lynn, right? But if I go in here and I go show archived, there I am, and I can just click reactivate, uncheck this guy, and then now both Lynn and I are here. Okay, so that's customer database or the customer entry screen. Now you got your invoicing screen. So I've kind of built this invoicing out pretty well. I've structured it to most items that you would need in a custom woodworking, CNC, laser, 3D printing shop. So a lot of the stuff's already listed. You may have to go in and adjust pricing for your local market. That's fairly simple to do. We'll get to that when we get to the invoice screen or the inventory screen. But in here, you would go in here, you would select a customer. Unless it's if it's a new invoice, you're going to select new. If it's a current customer, you go in here, you can select, the customer here and make sure that's updating. You know what? They're good. Oh. So when you select your customer or you click new invoice, okay, so it's asking me if I want to save these changes. I don't want to save any changes because I didn't make any changes. B, you shouldn't be making changes unless there's a good reason to make a change. Now, this is an invoice. So the only time that you would really want to allow that is if it's a quote and you're going back and forth with the customer about, what they want. And okay, well, change this because I want to save a little money here, or add this feature and I don't mind spending the extra money and send me the updated quote. You would do that in a quote screen, not in the invoice screen. The reason it's letting me do that right now is because I am currently logged in as an administrator. But if you are logged in as a sales or the accounting account, you're not allowed to make any changes to invoicing or quotes. So the quotes, I think I'm going to have to adjust that though. It's just occurred to me that I'm going to have to create a way for that approval process to happen. So, which quotes, I think it's safe to have an operator do that. But most people that are running a small shop, like what we're doing here, it's probably you, right? You are the administrator, you are the salesperson, and there's a high probability that you're the accountant too. So, but I did make those accounts just in case someone were to want to, have those positions available, right? So we're going to cancel that out. We're going to go back to my invoice, right? Um, we'll click on export to PDF, and I've got this set up to print out to a specific folder, right? And this invoice, I've already marked it as paid, so I've even got it set up where it'll put a watermark, a paid watermark on it when you check it as paid, which something's wrong here because that says unpaid, but it says paid. So that's something that I'll have to look into. As I said, this is the point where I'm at, where I need user acceptance testing to find all of these little quirks and things. See, the status is paid here, but for whatever reason, when I go to, let's save it and then export it again and open it. Yes. See, it's still saying unpaid. So that's a simple fix. It's probably just something in my Visual Basic Code that's not, when I check paid over here, it's not updating and iterating that status on the actual invoice. So something to fix. All right, so then we have our quote screen, very similar to the invoices. I'm not going to go too in depth into this. As I said, I'm just kind of giving you a brief overview. That way, if someone's interested, I'm going to select, I don't know, probably 3 to 5 people that I would like to do some user acceptance testing for me. We'll probably do like a 60 or a 90-day run. Maybe 1 or 2 feedback sessions, or just an open feedback loop, where you can send an email to info@mcsquaredcustoms.com for any issues that you've discovered or any improvements that you think or features that you think would be useful. Um, that sort of thing. So in the inventory screen, like I said, there's inventory screen. It's all listed. I've got it all broke down into, so it's category groups, categories, and then subcategories. And the reason I did this is for tax purposes, right? When you buy certain things, right, you want to be able to track exactly what it is, how I spent, this money on this product to create this product and make this, and then you can track expenses down to expense and profit, down to, the penny ultimately. Maybe it's overkill, maybe it's not. I felt like it was a good feature. So if you needed to add a new, you would click add new. And obviously here we are with another error. I'm going to go ahead and debug this and see what it says. So set C, H controls. Okay, so this is one of my helper functions that I'm going to have to go back and look at and see why it's even calling this here, because I don't think there should be. Oh, you know what? I know why it is. So here's why this is happening. So because if I go back in here, the thing that's missing off of here, when you saw that error come up, it said is active. So you can, I originally designed this to put an inventory item as an option to make it an inactive item. So let's say it's something that you were buying from a specific vendor that's no longer available, but you want to keep tally of what you have still. I thought it was a good idea to make an is active. So I probably just need to go in and adjust that code and maybe just take that is active option off of there. So you can go through and look. I've just kind of done some, tests, put some things in here. Same with this screen. I disable these buttons at the beginning and at the end so that you can't accidentally create blank in inventory records. And then it just kind of gums up the whole database, right? So we're going to close that one. Now for your suppliers, if you've got, this is actually a good thing. I think I'm going to also add a way. I don't know. We'll see what y'all think. Maybe you can send me some comments on the video once I upload it. If it's a good idea to maybe put a spot in here where I can digitize a receipt for supplies that I buy. Let's say I go to the big box store, whatever your local preference is, right? And I spend $350 on raw materials, building materials to build signs, boxes, widgets, whatever, right? And I want to make sure that I always have the ability to track that information through the current tax year. I can put an upload in here. Maybe you can just snap a picture, scan to PDF with your phone. I do that a lot with my receipts. You could then just shoot it over here to the database, and then the database will organize it for you and keep tally of it. I don't know, just an idea. And then there's a refresh here. This is if let's say you run a little bit bigger shop, right? Let's say you're boss man, boss woman, and you're sitting back in the office, right, doing some paperwork or tracking down leads, whatever, and you've got a worker out in the shop and they put in a new quote, right? Or they convert a quote to an invoice. Okay. If you want to refresh this live, I don't I think I can do it where I can make it refresh every so many minutes. I just didn't want to put that kind of load on a system where it just automatically refreshes. So I just put a refresh button here, and all it does is just go back in and check for changes. Okay. So as we talked about earlier, shop info. Okay. So you go in here, this is branded to your specific shop. Obviously this is my shop here. My tax rate, or standard rate is not set right now. Inventory markup is set. Like I said, these are dummy numbers for the most part, because I'm not actually using this database yet for my business. I'm using a version of this, but it's the stable release prior to this that I have user tested myself. But I want other people to test this version and see kind of what I need to refine on it. Okay. These are effective tax rates for Alabama, and then I keep a link so you can update this link also to, if you're in a different state than me and you want to put it, so you can go to your account. Boom, here you go. You can go up here and go my Alabama taxes, and then it would come up to a login screen, and I can go to all my tax documentation. And, every 3 months you got to go and file your taxes. The man's always going to want his money or her money, however you want to look at it. And then the last screen is our report screen. So there are some of these that are broken. So I've got them listed in here if they're broken. Right now, for whatever reason, when I try and export all of the reports at once, it locks the system up. I think I've isolated what it is, but for now, if you do wind up being one of the selections for user testing and you would want to do that, then just don't click on that link. Matter of fact, I do. I have that link disabled. So not to worry, you can't mess it up. So you can go in here and click active customers. It'll put a Excel spreadsheet style. This is a data sheet style display. As you can see, when I click new, it did put a blank entry in here, and that was created. You can go over here and look. Um, I did. I did do first contact creation. I did this as a date first contacted, but all of my records have a way to track who did it and when they did it. So if somebody modifies, one of your employees modifies a record, and let's say it's something that we didn't catch in initial acceptance testing or design, where, someone with not the correct privileges or someone that shouldn't be meddling in a certain screen actually accidentally meddles in a screen, we can see in the data sheet views when it was done and who did it. Okay, so it'll log the user. All right. um Revenue by month, and we'll go down here. So again, these are fake totals, but it'll track your revenue. This is great for, trying to figure out, what sells, what doesn't. This is sales by category. I'm going to actually build in another, we'll call it a graph, if you will, but, a statistics chart. Probably like I don't know. I got to put some thought into this, and which kind of graphical representation would be best for this. But when we want to look at sales by category, we want to look at, like, so our cutting board selling, and then I can probably break that down even more and look at, okay, what size a cutting board is selling, so that you can kind of see what is good and what is, what is not selling, so you can, adjust what your offerings are. We can do payment tracking. Oh, I haven't made that one yet. So I do have a payment tracking, but I have not. So I'll disable that one. Well, actually, before we get to testing, I will definitely fix that. You can do top customers, conversion rates. This is what I was talking about earlier with your quote to invoice. This is your conversion rate. So we had 3 quotes and 3 converted. Obviously, 100%. It's killer. I wish I could do that in my business. Okay. You can do your inventory value. So total inventory of what I have in my virtual made up stock right now. This is what I have. So anytime you're doing, like, let's say you're doing your taxes and you want to, calculate, okay, so I have this much inventory and I have this and that and whatever. Financial reports, very important. Movement reports. So this is showing, the stock movement. Okay. So what you have on hand, quantity, in the last 90 days, and then sold in the last 90 days. Okay. And then unpaid invoices. Do you have people that owe you money? That's obviously a good stat. And then profit margin. We love this one. Okay, so these, again, made up numbers, but here's a subtotal, total cost, right? Gross profit. Bam. That's what we want to know right there. That's the number that we're looking for. And I can probably adjust this algorithm and equation sum. But I prefer to start with gross profit, and then I can probably give another function somewhere that will show, what your net proceeds are. Because obviously, if I make a gross profit of $5,000 in the month of February, right? But I spend, X amount of money. We're not talking about supplies here. We're not talking about the raw materials that it takes to make, X widget. We're talking about the business expenses, electricity, shop, maintenance fees, that kind of stuff. Those kind of intangibles, typically I don't work into the quote specifically, because that is a business expense. It's a cost of doing business. So I can probably do an algorithm, and a formula that will calculate that, and we can do, if that's something that is needed. So you can let me know. With that said, we're going to close that out, and then let's see. I think I've covered all of the screens. Access. Oh, just to show you these work quotes work. Um, I feel like all the navigation works pretty well. As you can see, the database is fairly large. Once I give this up for user testing, you won't have access to any of my back end code, the how I put this together and all of this stuff, because I will split the front end and the back end. So basically, you're going to see minus this screen right here. You'll see all of this, and you'll be able to get to every one of these functions, but you won't be able to make any changes. And that's really to protect me in the product that I'm creating, right? So this is something that I want to bring to market and hopefully give somebody like myself who runs a small hobby style or larger business an affordable option or alternative to the other big names that are out there that are just killing profits. So if you're interested, please shoot me an email, info@mcsquaredcustoms.com, and we can talk about it and kind of iron out a timeline and go from there. Thanks much, and I hope you have a blessed day.